everyone, and welcome to the South Star Mining presentation, followed by a question and answer period. Richard Pearce, CEO of STS, South Star, is an accomplished mining engineer from the Colorado School of Mines with over 20 years of planning and building mines in the Americas. He's fluent in Portuguese and has lived in Brazil for 15 years. As the first listed North American company slated for production next year, STS offers a unique and compelling opportunity for investors. So Richard, let's get started.
Hi, Kathy. Again, thanks for this opportunity to be here. Thanks for your hard work in putting this on today. Again, excited to speak with you today about the Santa Cruz graphite project in Brazil. It truly is a fundamental value play in one of the premier battery metal jurisdictions in the world. Everybody's favorite slide. Just a couple highlights I'd like to kind of run through that I think really differentiate ourselves from the marketplace. First of all, it's a very experienced team, decades of taking projects from an idea to paper, through to construction and into production. We truly are mine builders and operators. We've got other operations that are in production. We know how to do it. We know how to stand them up. We know how to scale them. So this is part of our DNA. The other thing I think that's unique is the two-phased approach that we're using for production. Phase one, again, is a 5,000 ton per year concentration plant, approximately $10 million CAPEX. Phase two, the way it's conceived now, is a 25,000 ton per year concentration plant. And I like this approach for two main reasons. First of all is really risk management. It allows you to kind of work through the kinks, develop an understanding of your ore body, your network, recoveries, and probably most importantly, it develops those commercial relationships. You get product into the marketplace starts to understand what you provide. The second main reason I really like this is that it's, in my opinion, an intelligent way to allocate capital. So phase one is a fairly moderate CAPEX, and then phase two will be sized really based on market conditions, those commercial relationships, real offtake agreements, and instead of just turning the mining engineers loose to kind of run with maximizing NPV and IRR, you really focus on that phase two sizing based on commercial relationships, existing market conditions. So I think it's a much better, more intelligent way to allocate capital. This next slide basically comes from the fourth iteration of the critical battery metals report from the EU. And what stood out to me was really how much Brazil has the capability to become one of the premier battery metal jurisdictions in the world that can lead growth for decades to come. We currently have mines that have been producing for many years that supply most of the metals on this list, including copper, nickel, graphite, lithium, niobium, etc. So it truly is what I believe one of the premier battery metal jurisdictions in the world, and certainly outside of China. In terms of the value proposition, again, it's a deep value play compared to most of our industry group. By any metric, some percent of NPV, enterprise value as a ton of CG, et cetera. Again, it's a fantastic opportunity. And why is that? Basically, we got our mining license on December 31st of last year, 2020. And now we're really pushing hard to get the message out to the market, increase the profile of the company. We think the project, the team, the value proposition, the opportunity will speak for itself. And this eventually will be reflected in share price, better liquidity. And this should happen over the next short term as we lead into the financing. We're spending a lot of time and effort. And thanks to Kathy's team and all the hard work, we're really having some success in raising the profile of the company. A little bit about share structure. Again, about 72 million shares outstanding. Just over 100 million fully diluted. We just went out for a $2.5 million raise. We went out thinking we were going to bring home 1.5 million Canadian. We came home with 2.5 million and basically turned away $2 million. Currently, insiders own 22% of the shares outstanding. Institutional investors have about 7% of the total. Corporate structure, again, fairly simple, fairly easy to understand. SouthStar is listed on the TSX as well as the OTC. SouthStar owns 100% of the project. Brazil Graphite Core is a Cayman Island coal. Brazil Graphite Limitada is the onshore holding company, which owns 100% of the project itself. Again, no significant debt, no royalties other than the Brazilian mining tax, the CAPEX. So it's fairly easy structure. In terms of the leadership team, again, very experienced board, good group of guys that for the most part I've worked with most of the individuals for over a decade. Very good capital markets experience, very good operational experience, and again, very good Brazil experience, Latin America in general. Finance and IR is mostly based out of Canada, and most of the rest of the senior management team is based here in Brazil. Just briefly, again, walk through a little bit about myself. For most of my professional career, I was based in Denver, degrees in economics as well as engineering. As Kathy mentioned, I moved to Brazil in 2008. I've been here ever since, full time, currently based in Sao Paulo. 20 plus years experience in Latin American mineral resources. Again, I think it's a fantastic team to be working with. In terms of the investment highlights itself, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. It's a mining-friendly jurisdiction. Again, 80 plus years of continuous production. In terms of the mining itself, it couldn't be simpler. It's open pit mining, no drill and blasting. Again, it's an oxide ore deposit, a very low strip ratio with at surface mineralization. It's a proven flow sheet. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's a similar flow sheet basically to the other operating mines that are currently in production in Brazil, with one important exception, which is we'll be using filtered tails. So again, no tailings dam, no traditional pulp tailings deposition. We'll be doing filtered tails. The processed water will mostly be recirculated, and then the filter cake itself will be co-disposed in the waste storage facility along with the waste rock. Excellent infrastructure, and there's a slide coming up here that'll kind of walk through a little bit more about that. Again, it's basically ready for construction. The idea in terms of the timeline is basically financing in May or June, wrap everything up in July, mobilize contractors in August. We have a 12-month construction and commissioning schedule. Very excited about this. Again, commercial production is slated for September of 2022. We should be the first brand new mine in the Americas in over a decade. So we're just super excited to be able to say that and ready to get underway. Basically, the project is fully licensed, as I've already mentioned. We're using this phased approach where we step into it with the pilot plant and then scale up from there. In terms of environmental impacts, it's extremely low. Our waste has all been characterized as inert, non-dangerous according to Brazilian standards. We have a very small footprint, less than 2 hectares will actually be devegetated. It's mostly pasture lands and a little bit of cropland. So for the most part, very small environmental footprint. First quartile of cost in terms of OPEX, very low capital intensity. So it's a fantastic project that I think is de-risked for the most part. And we're really just getting down to execution risk, which is where the experience management comes in. Talk briefly here about ESG and sustainable production. This is basically our normal way of doing business. As I mentioned, we have other mines that are in production. This is just kind of how we do things here. So it's all based on openness, engagement, and transparency. From the environmental standpoint, again, we like to fairly characterize the risks and then do everything we possibly can to minimize those environmental impacts. So again, 80% of the energy generated in Brazil is from renewable sources. We will be looking at a solar power project that can be financed with incredibly reasonable terms. It's a tax incentive program that's set up by the Brazilian government itself. Again, tailings management is with filtered tails and dry stack. Water is being recirculated as much as possible. Again, very low strip ratio, so we're trying to be very conscientious about waste dumps and our overall footprint. And again, we're committed to providing community environmental education. In terms of the social side of things, we basically engage with the communities and the stakeholders from the very beginning. And we developed the project together in a partnership throughout the life of mine. And the team itself really focuses on strong governance and really incorporating best practices, ongoing critical evaluations, and continuous improvement. So it's something that's just our normal way of doing business. In terms of advantages, again, 65% of the ore body is large flake graphite plus 80 mesh. Brazil itself, unlike most of these other projects out there, has a large internal demand for graphite concentrate. Currently, there's approximately 80 to 90,000 ton per year of demand just in Brazil itself. We have a huge geologic potential. We're just scratching the surface. We've only basically explored about 5% of our total land package. We will be drilling and exploring additionally into 2021 and 2022. We have 10 to 15 drill-ready targets. So excited to get drills turning and look forward to basically expanding our resource over the next 6 to 8 months. In addition, we just started an advanced battery metals testing and value add program. We should be getting our first results here in the next 2 weeks. So again, look forward to getting basically a press release out related to the results every 30 to 45 days. Again, I think we should have very positive news related to that testing program. In terms of market dynamics, again, this is where I think everybody gets excited. If you think of graphite basically in two buckets, you have the industrial uses, which really focuses on refractories, high strength steels, lubricants, brake pads, etc. That's more or less growing at GDP growth rate. So goes GDP, so goes that bucket. And then the other value add bucket, which is really kind of focused on basically the lithium ion batteries, expandable graphite, electronics, advanced uses, graphene, etc. And that's the part that's growing basically at 25% year over year. Currently, worldwide demand is somewhere around 900,000 and maybe 1 million tons a year. By 2025, that basically has to double to 2 million tons per year. And the projections by 2030 are that basically has to double again to approximately 4 million tons per year. What does that mean in practice? Basically, between now and 2025, 10 to 12 new mines have to come online to meet that demand. And then that has to double again by 2030. Again, we focus very hard on being counter-cyclical investors. We believe that basically having a project that's queued up, ready to go, construction in production will be on the right side of the wave as this kind of supply-demand dynamics really carry out over the next 5 to 10 years. And we truly believe that's the best way to create long-term shareholder value. And we have our eyes out basically to add in some additional near-term assets along the way as they become apparent. Again, in terms of the overall supply by country, Brazil is either the second or the third largest supplier, depending on whether Syrah is producing or not producing. Again, it's a fantastic opportunity in a jurisdiction that's been producing for 80 plus years. Brazilian graphite is well regarded. It's well understood. It's a jurisdiction that is well known and well regarded in the marketplace. In terms of the infrastructure, again, this is another strong differentiator between ourselves and most of the other projects out there. Again, we're 1.3 kilometers off a paved federal highway. The power substation is less than 4 kilometers away. There's a gas pipeline that's less than 5 kilometers away. Water will be provided on site basically from wells. The major port of Ilhéus is 270 kilometers away, all on paved federal highways. Two of the largest container ports in Brazil are less than 400 kilometers away in Salvador and Vitória. And again, I think another hugely important element is just the experienced workforce that's available nearby. Again, we're on strike, very close to one of the other operating mines. Brazil has an unbelievably experienced workforce in general as it relates to mineral resources, but certainly as it relates to graphite and graphite concentrate. Again, world size, flake size, it characterizes itself as one of the largest flake deposits out there. We've sent 3-kilo samples around to 24, 30 different potential clients. They all love the product, and they're all basically asking for a production schedule and ideally 5, 20-ton samples. Again, we can't ship that to them currently, but again, that's another reason for the two-phased approach with the pilot plant. You can basically get your material into the marketplace. They can qualify that material. It takes approximately 10 to 18 months, depending on the supplier, to qualify that material. So again, it's a smart way of developing projects. And we're currently talking to several companies about potential offtakes or purchase orders. A little bit about the resource itself. Sedimentary deposit, disseminated ore body. The mineralized zone varies from 40 to 200 meters, 8+ kilometer long strike. We're open at depth, we're open along strike. The host rocks are mostly gneiss with quartzite intercalations. It's a very, very similar geologic context to the other producing mines in Brazil. We currently have 15 million tons at 2.3% CG resource, over 9,000 meters of drilling with some holes over 100 meters deep. We have yet to hit the transition zone or any hard rock elements yet. In terms of the resource itself, again, 12.3 million tons of resource at a 2.4. Most of the resource converted over into reserves. The first year's mine life, basically looking at a 3.3% grade. So again, that'll help us get into operations. In terms of the financial metrics, very robust project. $35 million CAPEX for phase 1, phase 2, $81 million NPV 5, 35% IRR, 4-year payback from the start of construction. CAPEX is very low intensity. In terms of OPEX, again, $400 a ton. We have other operations in production currently, so we're pretty comfortable in terms of, we know what our mining costs are, we know what our labor costs are, we know what our drilling costs are, we know what our process costs are. So again, pretty comfortable around our OPEX and CAPEX. And the way it's modeled now, we're using a basket price of $12.85, again, which is more or less in line with current prices. Again, I think the low CAPEX here compared to most of the other projects, and again, the low OPEX is a fantastic differentiator compared to most of our other competitors. These next couple slides I really like because it basically kind of, I think, highlights well the value proposition. So on this, we basically have CAPEX versus IRR. Again, South Star has one of the lowest capital intensities while also having one of the higher IRR metrics. Again, very experienced team, feel very comfortable around what our CAPEX, OPEX estimates are. This next slide, I think, is really, again, another way to highlight the value proposition. Basically, it's comparing steady phase to market cap. And if you look at us, we're in there twice, basically with South Star phase 1 and then South Star phase 1 and 2. Again, when you look at most of these studies, we're basically the only project out there that's gone through all the major study phases. As part of our PFS project, we went through the detailed design process for the phase 1. It's all based on, all our CAPEX is based on real quotes from real suppliers. Again, we should be basically one of the only new mines that comes into production worldwide in over a decade. So again, very exciting times. And when you look at basically the market cap, we're trading at a fraction of the NPV. So it's a truly unique opportunity to be investing in a deep value play. So why South Star? Why now, basically? Again, I'd like to highlight very experienced mine builders and operators that know Brazil, certainly know Latin America. We have a construction-ready, fully licensed project with low environmental impacts and strong ESG programs in place. Robust economics in a jurisdiction that's been producing continuously for 80 plus years. Again, Brazilian graphite is well understood and well liked in the marketplace. It's a very scalable project. We're just scratching the surface in terms of the exploration potential. A team that's very focused on risk management and intelligently allocating capital for long-term shareholder value. I think it's an unbelievable opportunity to be operating one of the premier battery metal jurisdictions anywhere in the world. And again, I think this will be the first new mine and continuous operations in the Americas in over a decade. So that's basically the presentation. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for participating. Open it up for any questions, comments, kind of walk through the presentations if there's anything that you feel like needs to be highlighted.
That's terrific, Richard. We did receive some questions by email earlier on, so I'd like to go through a few of those.
Sure.
One of the questions relates to the capital needed before you go into production. Can you give us some information on that? And also, would you also enlighten us if there's any offtake possibilities as well?
Yeah. So in terms of CAPEX, again, what we'll be going out for finance, it'll be somewhere between $10 to $15 million. The board just recently authorized us to accelerate the permitting for the phase 2 project. And we're also wanting to get in and do some significant drilling programs in the line of 4,000, 5,000 meters of additional drilling, both in 2021 and 2022. So again, somewhere in the range of $10 to $15 million. Half of that will be debt. We are negotiating with Brazilian development banks as well as some other banks and credit funds out there to basically put in place the debt portion of it. And we'll be going out for the remainder of it basically in equity financing sometime along the lines of May or June. And again, in terms of offtake agreements, we have various conversations underway with different suppliers around the world to basically be negotiating offtake agreement or a purchase order. And I look to have those in place here over the next 30 to 45 days.
Great. Further, you're planning to go to about 25 or 30 tons of production per year. Do you expect to go beyond that either organically or through acquisitions?
In short, yes. Again, like I mentioned, I think phase 2 will really be sized based on market realities, commercial relationships, again, the supply-demand dynamics. So the way it's conceived now, that's around 25,000 ton per year in the PFS. But again, that's likely to increase. If you look around the world, on average, producing mines are somewhere always in the range of 20 to 30,000 ton per year production facilities. You really got to focus hard on making sure that you're able to meet spec. You're guaranteeing your QA, QC, and be able to consistently produce product. So we're going to be focusing a lot on making sure we meet spec, we delivering quality products. So in concept, the idea is we'll take the pilot plant, we'll turn that into a value add plant, meaning we'll be doing expandable graphites, purified graphites, as well as SPG graphites. And then the larger plant will basically be focused on 94, 97% CG, that then we can scale that based on market conditions at the time. And that's another reason why it's important for us to get out and basically drill this year, drill next year. Our current mine life is about 12 years. But again, you can't throw a rock without hitting graphite out there. So it's really just a matter of getting the drills turning and turning that into resource and reserves.
Right. I wonder if our audience has any questions.
Sure, absolutely. I can. Hi, everybody. It was submitted by an investor, so I'm just going to read it out loud. Brazil seems especially hard hit by COVID-19. Has it affected STS in any way in your current operations, or you expect it to affect your operations going forward?
Sure. You know, unfortunately, Brazil has, in many ways, stumbled its way through trying to effectively deal with COVID itself. Again, it gets down to sort of individual responsibility, company responsibility, state responsibility, as opposed to kind of a coordinated federal effort. In our other operations, we basically had to go in and we installed the protocols that we thought were reasonable and responsible. So again, we added extra transportation so that we could maintain social distancing in the buses. We have a registered nurse measuring temperatures on everybody going in and going out. We hired extra cleaning crews to basically go through, clean all the equipment, clean all the trucks, the equipment itself, et cetera. We hired a doctor to do contact tracing and basically worked with the community itself to get a level of comfort around what we were doing so that we were minimizing contact, minimizing exposure, contact tracing, et cetera. So overall, we had very minimal impacts to our other operations, and we don't anticipate any significant delays or changes to our schedule based on COVID the way it is right now. And God willing, you know, we hope to have the vaccination program starting to accelerate here in Brazil, and you know, cases slowly coming back under control. We're currently back in lockdown in Brazil, and state governments have taken the leading role as opposed to federal government. So nationwide, the state governments got together and basically had a lockdown. We've been in lockdown for 2+ weeks. It's expected to go continue through basically the 10th or 11th of April. So I think in general, Brazil is starting to turn the corner and taking it seriously, but certainly don't anticipate any significant delays to our schedule. And again, that gets back to companies that are taking it seriously, know how to handle the situation, and work together with the communities, the stakeholders, to kind of put in place reasonable and responsible protocols to handle situations like a global pandemic. I've never seen it before in my lifetime, but you know, I think we've handled it very well compared to many other companies. And in fact, the protocols we put in place were adopted by the municipality where one of our other operating mines is currently in production.
Great. So extra safety procedures, you know, but no expected delays, let's just say, in the timeline.
Correct.
Okay, I think we will let everybody unmute themselves right now. So you can either ask your question live or maybe even add it to the chat, whatever way you prefer. But I think we're opening the floor now to everybody. Joe, I think I see you unmuted yourself. Do you have a question?
Yes, I basically it's not a question because Richard, your excellent presentation addressed the questions that I had. I just wanted to say that you know, definitely it's a project that ticks all of the boxes, and the fact that even management and insiders on such a large percentage is a great source of comfort, you know, to me, and I am sure to most investors. Cassie brought this story to my attention, and I'm really glad that she did, and really pleased to be on board. So I just wanted to wish you continuations of great success and look forward to the regular updates with good news.
Fantastic. Appreciate the feedback, Joe, and happy to hear, you know, kind of thoughts, and we're open to you know, any suggestions on how better to get the story out there. And you know, we're really working hard to get the profile of the company raised. And again, like I said, I feel like the company, the project will speak for itself. It's a fantastic opportunity, and it's really just a question of time for the market to catch up with something we believe to be a fantastic opportunity.
Thank you.
Richard, Greg Winicki with Haywood Securities in Calgary.
Hi, Greg.
Just to recap on your CAPEX, you're looking for roughly 7.5 million US to build your pilot plant?
Yeah, the CAPEX itself is around 7.5 million. Our latest quote, we went out in December and kind of touched base with all the suppliers just because of the way metal, certainly raw material prices have gone, particularly steels, cement, those types of things. So CAPEX itself is around 7.5 million, maybe 8 million, somewhere in that range. And phase 2 is basically around 25 million. So a total of approximately 35 million, phase 1, phase 2.
And on the metallurgical side, have you taken your product all the way to battery material? And what were the results of that?
We've taken it all the way to purified material. So we haven't produced anode material, but we have produced 99.9 plus % purified graphite. Again, very low contaminants. Again, the testing program we're going through right now will actually produce a coin cell. We'll be working through long cycle testing, which is basically just like, assume you were starting your car and then you turned it off, and you started a car and you turned it off. So we'll be basically testing that all the way through to see how the actual battery cell performs. We'll also be looking at some of the higher end value plays, such as expandable graphite, fire retardants, foils, those types of things. Feedback so far has been fantastic. We have had some of our material that was taken to advanced stages. Again, very positive feedback. And I think a lot of it has to do, a lot of my comfort comes from the fact that Brazilian graphite is very well regarded. It's a very known commodity and very well respected in the marketplace. So don't anticipate any hiccups along the way, but we should be getting testing results coming out. Like I said, I think the first result will come out in about 2 weeks. And then about every 4 weeks to maybe 45 days, we'll be adding additional results to that testing program. The overall testing program itself will be a total of 6 months. And most of that is related to that long cycle testing program of the coin cell itself.
And 2 final questions. You've got a small series of warrants at 5.5 cents, 2.6 million approximately. When do they expire? And when do your 15-cent warrants of 25 million expire?
Let me see. I don't think we put the expiration dates on the capital structure itself. Greg, that's something I can certainly look up and get back to you.
Sure, that'll be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just write that down.
Richard, while you're writing that down, I think Barbara's question would be suitable just because you kind of mentioned hiccups. You don't expect any hiccups along the way, which is good. Sure. But Barbara asked, what keeps you awake at night? Is there anything you might be worried about?
My dogs sometimes keep me awake. In general terms, what keeps me awake at night?
Any hurdles?
I don't anticipate any significant hurdles in terms of really moving this project forward. I think by the way we're approaching it, it inherently is mitigating a lot of the typical risks. So if you look across different ways that projects have difficulties, many times there's the geologic potential, which in our case we've really kind of nailed down. And again, it's in a region that has been producing for 80 plus years. We have 10 to 15 drill targets that are ready to go. It's really just a question of getting the drills turning. The met work, we've worked through a 30-ton pilot plant sampling program already. We've sampled all the way across the ore body. We sampled at depth. So we're pretty comfortable in terms of how the actual ore itself is distributed across the resource and reserves. We've worked with very experienced consultants. Most of our consultants worked on other Brazilian operations. Brazilians get outsourced many times to other operations because of the deep experienced workforce that exists here in Brazil. So oftentimes, some of our consultants have consulted for projects in Africa, in Asia, Australia, et cetera. So I think we've got most of the big things checked off and de-risked, and really it gets down to doing our fundraising as quickly as possible, getting the money in the bank, and then getting firm quotes on everything. And then it's just a matter of executing it. And again, I think that's where having an experienced team that's been there, done this, really kind of plays into our strengths. So I'm much more excited than I am about staying awake at night. But you obviously have to be present and be very focused. And so I think, again, our focus is totally on putting this into production as quickly as possible. The board has been gracious enough to accelerate our investments into the phase 2. So we're trying to accelerate that about a year compared to what we were originally planning, and really focused on getting those commercial relationships developed and getting product into the marketplace as quickly as possible. So I think where the largest amount of work that we really have to focus moving forward is making people, potential clients, understand, what our products are, and making sure that we understand where we add a lot of value so that we're able to get a very good price for our product. I have no intention of trying to compete with lesser products at $500, $600 a ton. Our focus will be much more on value add, higher margins, and better profits.
Great. And I think last question we'll take, it's a good one. Will there be a map that showcases the size of the Santa Cruz project and proximity to the other graphite mines? Because maybe some investors don't realize how close the project actually is to other production.
Sure.
And I think you can mention the video, right, that you want to mention to us that you want to do to showcase the project as well.
Yeah, we just last week we went out and flew the site with the drone, so we'll be using that to develop very detailed topo, as well as the most recent aerial photos. We will be putting out, approximately a 45-second to maybe a 1-minute video, really focus on, here's the project, here's conceptually what the plant will be laid out as, here's our location with regards to all the infrastructure, be it the substation, the paved road, here's the roads, here's the power station, here's the port, et cetera, so you can get a very good idea in terms of the infrastructure itself. There is a map in the PFS, and I'm sorry, I don't remember it off the top of my head what page it's on, but again, we can put up kind of a follow-up to that and tell you exactly what figure it is. But certainly in the video itself, we'll kind of list where we are in comparison to the other operating facilities in Brazil, and make that very clear. Good idea.
Okay, great. So just one last thing, Richard, if you don't mind, can you just tell our audience why we should own the stock right now?
Sure.
Just a few reasons.
Again, I think if I'm scrolling through here to this slide here, I think it really lays it out, why SouthStar, why now? I think it's all related to the project. Again, we're so excited to say that we'll be the first new mine that comes into production in the Americas in over a decade. Very experienced team with building mines, spinning them up, operating them, scaling them. If you look around in the universe, there's probably 50 projects that are out there. When you look across different management teams, you look across different operating environments, we're not frozen 4 months out of the year. We're not in the middle of the jungle. We're not in the middle of the desert. We've got fantastic infrastructure. We've got very low capital intensity. We've got very low OPEX. We'll be first quartile of cost. So again, we can be profitable throughout any commodity cycles. We'll be very competitive with Chinese cost in general. Again, I think it's a premier battery metal jurisdiction. So I think when you look across, potential competitors and things like that, Brazil truly is an unbelievable opportunity that should supply raw materials and future growth opportunities. And again, I think the team differentiates itself from most other companies out there. We have 22% of our own money with skin in the game. We're very experienced in terms of operations, building, financing, decades of experience in Brazil. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity when you look at where we're valued compared to most of the other marketplace. And again, I think it's just a matter of time for us to kind of broaden out our shareholder base and get share price up and increase liquidity. I think we're the best bang for the buck out there with one of the few projects that should be built here in the near term. So I think that's why it's a fantastic opportunity to be investing in us, and it's a unique opportunity to really make some pretty good bank in a sector that is basically primed to have the supply dynamic shift towards producers, and particularly producers that can really focus on value add production and getting the product into the markets where there's strong profit margins.
Great. Thank you, Richard. And thanks everybody for joining our webinar. We really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to bringing you further information as we move along. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you all.